In some cases, you might be working with a sound that's in stereo, but has different levels and different textures on the left and right channel. Key example would be in this track here. I have this short string stab. It's clearly balanced differently left and right. And in instances like this, you want to use what's simply called left-right EQ. In Logic, when we open up the stock EQ, we'll have an option here that says processing. Most DAWs will have this to some degree, maybe in a different location or named differently, but we can do a few things here. We can go left only, right only, mid only, side only. At the moment, we're going to look at left and right only, and mid side will be something we look at shortly. For example, if I now choose left only, this EQ, while on a stereo channel, will now only process on the left channel. For example, if we put a big bump here, we'll be able to hear a difference. Now this can be useful to control sounds that are balanced differently with the left and right. Equally, if the frequency is different in the left and right for, say, the low frequency, we might want to use two EQs, one set up left only and one set up for right only, and have two different high passes, as perhaps our cello, for example, might be panned a little bit further to the left or the right. This also allows us to do things like boosts and cuts in different areas. So we can have the high end really stand out on the right hand side. This could be a mixed choice to help with your balance, and might suit the whole overall track better. Talking about the low frequency, if we look at the harmonic that pops up around 300 Hz here, we can see it's significantly louder on one side than the other. And we can see that because we have the readout to show us. Another instance where you might want to use left and right separate EQ are drums. Drums are often mixed in a bus, and we'll have some hard panning like hi-hats off to one side and crashes off to another. You may just simply want to tame some harsh crash sounds on one side of that individual mix, especially if it's a live drum set recorded just with a dual mic system. So that's how we would independently EQ just the left and right channels separately. Let's now have a look at some uses of mid-side EQ. Okay, so let's have a look at mid-side EQ. So on the screen at the moment is a plugin called HEQ, and I've got that up because it has mid-side built into it. Rather than having multiple EQs open at any one time, we can just use this as an example. And in this track here, I've used it to remove the mids of a sound and EQ just the sides. So what does that mean? Well, what we'll do here is we'll solo the track it's on.
Shine the light and show me where to go. Call my name and that will guide me through. Make it sound so I can follow, I can follow, I can follow you.
Hopefully you can hear that that's made really, really wide. And I've done that by using a couple of things. Well, I've sent it to a delay and I've used this mid-side EQ to remove the midsection and just enhance the left and right hand side. So if we can just listen to this. Okay, so hopefully you can hear here that this is just this side of the vocal. Okay, if I was to boost it, it's kind of no middle, right? Now if I bring down this slider here, which is the sides, and here is the center. That's actually the middle. So together, we have the whole vocal in its stereo field. You can kind of think of it as this is the mono, and this is the stereo. So I've got the original vocal here, and that's going to be doing all the middle work, and I've EQ'd the sides separately just to have a little bit of lift to give it that really wide feel when all of the vocals together.
And that will guide me through, make it sound so I can follow, I can follow, I can follow you. Show me where to go, call my name and that will guide
So
me
if I was to
through.
adjust this here, we can boost and make it feel even wider.
I can follow you, shine the light and show me where to go, call my name and that
Take it
will
away.
guide me through, make it sound so I can follow, I can follow.
It's far more
I can
central.
follow you, shine the light and show me where to go, call my name and that will guide me through, make it sound so I can follow, I can follow, I can follow you, shine the light and show me where to go, call my name and that will guide me through, make it sound so I can follow, I can follow, I can follow you. Show me.
Let's have a look at another example. Let's take the drums of this track. And we'll use a different EQ. I'll use Pro Q3 works in a slightly different way. Instead of having those two different modes and two different sliders, when we create a point in Pro Q3, we can choose what this particular point is going to do. Here it's stereo, so at the moment it always EQs the left and right channels equally, but we can separate them, so we can have it so it's left or the right. We also have mid and side. So now this is a mid-only EQ. So what I could do with the drums here is if I was to make this, say, a low cut, I could remove all the mids of the drums. Have a listen. We're just left with the stereo field. If I were to change this to stereo, if I were to change this to the sides, I could do the same thing, but it would make the drums completely mono. Notice our kick is left alone this time. So for example here, I could do a mid cut. And I could cut away just the mids, knowing that all the highs would be left alone. Equally, if I wanted to ensure that nothing was going to compete with the kick, and we know the kick is purely in the mid channel because we can remove it, then I could make this a side. I would roll this away just above the kick, and now nothing is going to be stereo below that point and will not interfere with the kick drum. So those are a couple of uses of mid-side EQ and two examples of EQs that support mid-side options. Again, the stock one in Logic does this also, but again, like before, it's not quite as ergonomic and we can only have mid-only or side-only. We can't do both all within one GUI.